Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Or even meaningful work experience, I impressed them and they added me to the interview list.
So you didn't make the first round, but you went down and introduced yourself to a recruiter and struck up a conversation with them. And you were able to get their attention enough to where you got on their list to be interviewed.
Yep.
You get interviewed and you get hired.
Yes, I was hired. And then 3 years later, because they have several rounds of interview, and then we were invited to fly to Cupertino,
Right.
to the Bay Area, and then got interviewed and then met with executives, so 2 or 3 years later, after I joined Apple, what's interesting was I still remember one of the recruiters at the time chatted with me and said, "Hey, Ying, you probably did not know you were on top of the hiring list after the interview." So I
Pretty
thought like,
cool.
wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a very cool experience. I still felt, as I said, just sometimes what I learned, like never take a no as a no.
Right. Well, and what you learned obviously is even though you didn't make the first round of the interviews, you sort of stuck your nose in there, right? You got in through the crack in the door, so to speak, and you built up a relationship with this recruiter that got their attention, and then you were off to the races, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So you would have never had that opportunity if you had just taken, oh, well, I didn't make the first round of the interview list and moved on to a different company. There
Mhm.
are so many people that are listening to this that have done that and would be tempted to do that. And what they need to do is if they really want that job, if they really want to work for that company, there's a way to figure it out, right? There's a way to go find somebody of influence that you can build a relationship with to get yourself in there.
Yep.
There's a way, right? Where there's a will, there's a way,
Absolutely.
so to speak, right?
Yeah, and then throughout my career, I interviewed, I wouldn't say 1,000, but at least a few hundred, at least people. I
Right.
have many, many opportunities to recruit people, and that was exactly true. Just sometimes I felt like, I would like to hire people who will be willing to take a risk
Right.
and who really understand how to start a conversation and
Right.
how to impress the recruiter.
Right. Well, it shows desire, right?
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that is, I think, more important when you have an MBA
Mhm.
than ever. Because you
Mhm.
have an MBA and there are people out there that think, well, I've got an MBA now, so they should come to me.
Mhm.
That's not the way it works. That's not the
Yep.
way business works. And you're
Mhm.
living proof of it,
Yeah,
right?
I have many examples like that later
Yeah,
on, but you're absolutely you're right. Life is all about initiatives.
it really is. So you work at Apple for how long?
For 12 years.
Wow. So what was your favorite thing about working for Apple?
Oh, too many to list. Um, Apple is a very, very unique place. I loved the Apple culture in the way that it's very down to earth.
Mhm.
It's always like to look at the facts, look at the numbers. Um, Even though at the surface people feel like Apple is a glamorous place, like all these fancy advertisements and all these headlines. But the reality is Apple people are super smart and hardworking.
Yeah,
People are not just to talk the talk, but also walk the walk.
right.
Just if you look at Silicon Valley, you go to the parking lot after 5 p.m. or even 6 p.m. You know, if you compare all these companies, how many cars left in the parking lot, you can tell a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. So you were there from 1999 to 2011?
From 2000, because 1999 was my second year at MBA. So I was hired in 2000.
Okay.
So from 2000 to 2012. Yeah.
Okay. So you saw a massive turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
You were there when they were turning that entire thing around.
Yeah.
That had to have been really cool.
Absolutely. And I was the very first expatriate that Apple sent from Cupertino to Shanghai. I started the entire Apple China operations.
Yeah. What was it like working for Steve Jobs?
Well, I have to say, you know, I never directly worked for Steve Jobs. You know, he was the CEO, and I think he has a very strong mind. He's so determined to do what he wanted to do. I think many times proved that, you know, he was absolutely right. There was a documentary I watched on a flight, actually probably a couple of years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, called "The Man Behind the Computer" or something like that. Sorry if I didn't code it right. But that was about the Steve and about actually those years I was with Apple. And on that flight, I cried, you know, after watching that, because it was just like, you know, a lot of memories and a lot of things, you know, what was mentioned in the documentary so resonate with me. You know, I was there during that period of time.
That had to have been amazing. So you end up leaving in 2012. Why do you leave Apple?
That's also a very good question. I had a great career and a great boss, and I really love the, you know, a lot of coworkers. I really like, you know, working with them. They're so smart. You know, they're absolutely the best people you can think of. You know, to be your coworkers. But on the other side, I also started thinking about, at the time I was 38. I started thinking about what would be next for me.
Right.
I can see sort of the path down the road, but on the other side, I have some other sort of dreams in one way, and the other side, I just had my first child, my first daughter a year earlier. I started thinking, should I slow down to be able to mind my family? Because, you know, at that time, I thought like I could come back at any point to ramp iPhone 20 or something. But if I miss the early days of my child, I don't know if I can, you know, say come back to see her first step, or, you know, while she was in elementary school. So,
they're only that age once.
yeah, exactly. So, and I thought like maybe that was the good timing to kind of do something different.
So you leave Apple,
Mm-hmm.
and what do?
I was a stay-home mom for a year. I basically started thinking about what I would do, and you know, I'll talk about maybe slightly later. But I basically just take care of my child, and we travel around the world. We went to London. We spent 4 months in China, catching up with friends and families, traveling around, and I was thinking, actually, it was all in my mind. I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, because I did have some ideas. You know, I love to travel, and I see the lack of technology in travel planning. And so I wanted to do an integrated platform for travel. So I wanted to stay away from hardware, from manufacturing, you know, from what I used to do day in, day out. Was at Apple. Yeah.
So you travel for a year, show the baby off, right? I've been there. I did that tour too, twice.
Oh.
Mine are 23 and 25 now. But I'll never forget it. I'll never forget, you know, when our firstborn was born and when our second one was born, we were on tour, right? We were all over the place taking these babies out to show them off. So it was a lot of fun. It was one of the best times of my life. So So you're off for a year, stay-at-home mom, and then what do you decide to do?
I was kind of brewing ideas of my next business, and so uh, I basically assembled a team with bunch of software programmers and graphic designers. So we did a travel itinerary planning sort of software.
Okay.
Idea was, as you imagine, I don't know how you plan your travel, but I used to do like a gigantic spreadsheet,
Mhm.
where the date, the where to stay, the flight, and then the sightseeing and all this. And I
All the
use
information that you need in one spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. At the time, like Google Map wasn't that big. That was still
Right.
like Yahoo Map, if you
Right.
remember
Yeah, I remember
MapQuest,
Yahoo
right?
Map. Yeah.
Yeah, those days. And then the calendar. I'm a person cannot live without a calendar. I like to kind of book everything, put everything on my calendar. But then I also use like TripAdvisor and some other tour guide, like Lonely Planet to find all the points of interest. So I thought like I could integrate, some of all this information, then I can have a better user experience. So that's what I did for the next 3 years after Apple. Yeah.
Okay.
There's
So you
another lessons learned.
yeah. So
Go
you
ahead.
develop this software
Mm-hmm.
and you sell it obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you
No,
still
I did not. Actually, I shut it down. I
oh, you
didn't.
shut it down. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
shut it
you
down. Yeah.
so you develop that software, you have it for 3 years or so, and
Mm-hmm.
then where do you go?
Then I started doing well. As I said, I feel like in the travel business, there are struggles everywhere. It's
Right.
not a supply chain that that has a lot of money in it, I have to say. And then I decided to, and it's a very service oriented. I want to do more technology. So at one point, like when I was started thinking about what's next
Mhm.
after the travel itinerary thing was I got a phone call from somebody who familiar with my background and said, "Hey, Ying, I need some recommendation on the supply chain. Do
Mm,
you know somebody doing packaging?
mhm.
They have a particular problem they want to solve, and in a more kind of sustainable way."
Right.
And I said, "Oh, that's easy. Let me, because of packaging. Actually, I've been to hundreds of factories.
Mhm.
Packaging has never been an issue on my radar list. So
Right.
thought like, okay, I'll just go find some vendor. But when I visited many different vendors, I found like nobody in the packaging industry is really focusing on sustainability,
Yeah.
how to make the packaging more sustainable, more recycling friendly. And I happened to meet with my technical partner who has a perfect combination of background, from like a paper mill, paper making industry, and also from plastic polymer companies, and that, he worked for both of the industries. And I felt like, that would be a great combination. Like for me, I can be the product person, be the kind of the industry person, then, we can get some technology proven to be working for packaging. So that's
Right.
kind of how I got started in the current Blue Lake packaging business. Yeah.
Yeah. So Blue Lake is sustainable, right?
Hmm.
It creates or makes sustainable packaging.
Hmm.
And when you say sustainable, you're talking about something that's biodegradable, right?
Hmm. It
And you're
is.
talking about something that you can recycle.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Because when it comes to sustainable packaging, there are probably different elements of the definition.
Right.
People are talking about using recycled material,
Yeah.
where people are talking about the recycling friendly,
Right.
uh, where people are talking about the biodegradability or composability. So yeah, I think for us, we're very much focusing on recycling with paper. We're
Gotcha.
focusing on kind of composability and of course the biodegradability, which is a little bit kind of loose, when it comes to biodegradability. Yeah.
Right. So Blue Lake being sustainable,
Mhm.
tell us what your definition of sustainable is.
To us, yeah, I always look at things. Uh, from input, output, and the processing point of view, if
Right.
you think about that.
Right.
So from the input perspective, what we use as raw materials are all kind of bio-based or plant-based, either
Okay.
fiber or, bio-based additives. So that's kind of the input. And then for the output, basically our exit criteria would be recycling with paper or backyard composable.
Okay.
And inside of the manufacturing, as you can imagine, the input and output, the process, the transformation, that no toxic chemicals, how we can make it more energy efficient, and then we'll be able to scale. And so that's kind of basically how we're defining our sort of product.
So when people talk about sustainability, that's the reason I'm asking. When people talk about sustainability, they're talking about things that it's a broad definition, right? So what it sounds like you're saying is you're using things going in, the input is environmentally friendly.
Yep.
Right? It's not something that's going to last in the soil. It's not something that's going to poison, our wildlife and that kind of thing, right? Or our kids, right? And adults or animals and people, and then the output. It sounds like it's something that if people were to throw it away or they were to bury it in their backyard, it would biodegrade in a way to where it just become part of the soil. It'd be composting. Right? Compost eligible, I guess is the best way, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about in terms of that sustainability thing. You're talking about something, for lack of a better term, that's just environmentally friendly. It's safe.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So we always like to say from nature to nature.
Right.
So it just is something you get from nature. You don't have to do some like synthetic, material or anything.
Like plastics and all that kind of stuff that ruin the environment. Yeah.
Exactly. And then back to the nature, because we know regardless of how much, we are promoting recyclability, but that, there will be something end up in the soil, in the ocean, but it will not damage or harm, the soil, because the soil and the ocean, that's kind of the point of our food chain, the beginning of our food chain. So you do not want to kind of poison those in a way, and then back into your body and into your kind of food system.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and also what's interesting when you talk about the composability and biodegradability, we use the TUV home, which is a standard that used in Europe. And to keep it simple is a long standard, but keep it simple was the test they do was they will put your product into the soil, and then after 90 days, they're going to put seeds in the soil and see like 100 seeds, for instance, and then see how many seeds will kind of sprout, will grow. So that's how
an idea.
How your product will be able to kind of combine, into the really the food system.
Yeah. Well, that's really smart because you're literally proving that it's environmentally safe, right? It's good for nature. It's good for the environment.
Yeah.
That's really smart. I didn't know
Yeah.
Europe did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know how many companies go through that kind of standard, but that's the standard that I really, really like. I feel like,
Me
yes,
too.
today, we really look at, I'm hoping like all companies, I recently posted on LinkedIn. I really hope because last week I just read the news, the 1.5 degree has passed, and but I feel like that's a very convoluted target for many people. We, as ordinary people like us, we don't really know, what we can do with the 1.5 degree.
Right.
But I also feel like, for companies and even for ourselves, we can look at, even how much revenue or even cost of goods sold comes from, reuse, recycle, repair, repurpose. So we should, eventually, hopefully, split the revenue into two categories. And
well, I think it's also a real selling point for people, because if people know that you're using, like Patagonia, right? Patagonia is a good example. They're environmentally friendly to a degree, right? So to the nth degree, right? So, when people understand that that whoever it is that they're buying from company A is using non-sustainable, non-environmentally friendly packaging, and company B is using yours, they're going to choose B all day long if they care about their planet, if they care about their kids, if they care about the future of this place, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that for a company to be using you to contract with you and use your packaging is a real advantage for them, and it's something that they can market, right, when they're talking to their customers, their potential customers that care about the environment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
a big
absolutely.
thing.
I think a lot of companies are using sustainability as one of their marketing kind of voice.
Yeah.
Just I can say I'm from the industry. I think it just become a matter of what's really kind of environmentally friendly and what claim to be environmentally friendly, but it may not be the case, right?
Yeah.
So there are always different standards and different perspectives.
So we've had a ton of coaches and mentors and authors and experts and marketing people and all that gurus, right? That are all talking about differentiation. They're all talking about how this company and this company do the exact same thing, but this company differentiates themselves. Well, this is an opportunity for companies to massively differentiate themselves and then market to their potential customers, to this company's customers, right? That they're taking care of the planet, they're taking care of the environment, they're taking care of our children's future.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw your yesterday's podcast, and you interviewed somebody from who used to work for a toys company.
Sal Panici.
Yeah, and working on a book. Originally, the book name caught my eye, like a plastic toy box, and I thought, like, okay, plastic.
Yeah. So he wrote a book called The Toy Box, right? Now he's got another one called The Plastic Toy Box that he's writing. And he wrote about his mom called A Life Well Lived. He's really cool. That literally just hit the system last night while I was asleep. So Sal is one of those Jersey guys. I mean, he's through and through. You saw what I was talking about. I mean, he's a kick. So
exactly. So I love it.
That was
Yeah, that's all very interesting. But I think what I'm trying to say is, like even in toys, because you're talking about kids, they're talking about parenting, as a parent myself, I really want to create an environment that, that my kids can enjoy, 30, 40 years down the road.
Yeah, let's be honest. Our job as parents, our job as leaders, our job as business owners, is to leave this planet better than how we found it. Okay, because our kids are going to take over, our grandkids are going to take over, and we need to leave this place better than how we found it, not worse.
I absolutely agree.
That's where Blue Lake comes in.
Thank
Ying
you.
Lui, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough for spending this time with me. I totally enjoyed our time together. I cannot thank you enough for being a guest of the Mike Litton Experience. And I'm super, super excited for what you're doing and for your future. And I'm super proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much. It has been a privilege to be here.
It was nice meeting you. Take care and thanks again.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.